Dean Martin showed up to a Western movie set as an extra. What happened during the saloon scene changed Hollywood history and made him a star, proving that sometimes destiny finds you when you're just trying to earn $25 a day. It was September 1951, and Dean Martin was broke. His partnership with Jerry Lewis was still a year away from making them the biggest comedy duo in America, and Dean was taking whatever work he could find to pay the rent on his small apartment in Hollywood. When his agent called about extra work on a Western being filmed at Republic Studios, Dean didn't hesitate. $25 a day to stand around in cowboy clothes, his agent said. It's called Gunfire at Silver Creek. Howard Hawks is directing, and they need background cowboys for saloon scenes. You interested? Dean was absolutely interested. $25 was good money for a day's work, and he'd always looked good in Western wear. How hard could it be to stand in the background and pretend to drink whiskey? The movie starred Randolph Scott, one of Hollywood's biggest Western heroes, and was set to be a typical shoot-'em-up about cattle rustlers and honest ranchers. Dean's job was simple: be part of the crowd in the Silver Dollar Saloon during several key scenes. Look authentic, don't speak unless spoken to, and definitely don't draw attention to yourself. Dean showed up to Republic Studios at 6 in the morning wearing his own boots and hat. The costume department fitted him with chaps, a vest, and a gun belt, and he had to admit he looked the part. The other extras were a mix of experienced background actors and cowboys who worked at local ranches for authenticity. All right, listen up, the assistant director announced to the group of 30 extras. This is a professional operation. You're being paid to be invisible. Background action only. No improvisation. No trying to get noticed. No upstaging the principals. Just be authentic cowboys going about your business. Dean nodded along with everyone else. He had no intention of causing trouble. He just wanted to do his job, collect his pay, and hopefully get called back for more work. The first scene was straightforward. Randolph Scott's character enters the saloon, orders a drink, and has a conversation with the bartender about cattle thieves. The extras were supposed to play cards, drink, and have quiet conversations that couldn't be heard over the principal dialogue. Dean was seated at a corner table with 3 other extras, playing poker. The scene went smoothly. Hawks called cut, and they reset for another take. Everything was going according to plan. The second scene was more complex. Scott's character was supposed to confront a suspected cattle rustler at the bar. The extras were directed to gradually notice the tension and slowly clear away from the potential gunfight, creating natural dramatic space. During the first take of this scene, something unexpected happened. As the tension built between Scott and the suspected rustler, one of the extras at Dean's table knocked over his whiskey glass, creating a loud crash that ruined the take. Cut, Hawks called, clearly annoyed. Let's reset and try that again. And please people, be more careful with the props. As they prepared for the second take, Dean noticed something. The extra who had knocked over the glass looked nervous and embarrassed. Dean leaned over and quietly said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Happens to everybody. Just focus on the scene, not the glass." His voice was calm, reassuring, and carried just enough authority to settle the nervous extra. But more importantly, it carried across the set in a way that made several people look over, including Howard Hawks. Hawks had directed dozens of westerns and had worked with every major Hollywood star. He had an ear for authentic Western dialogue and presence. Something about Dean's voice, his natural authority and calmness, caught his attention. They ran the scene again. This time, as the confrontation built between Scott and the rustler, Dean naturally and subtly helped guide the other extras' reactions. Nothing theatrical, nothing attention-grabbing, just the kind of natural leadership that would emerge in a real saloon during real tension. Hawks noticed. After the take, he walked over to the extras' table. "You," he said, pointing at Dean. "What's your name?" "Dean Martin, sir." "You have any acting experience, Martin?" "Some singing, some nightclub work. Nothing like this." Hawks studied Dean's face, his posture, his natural presence. How would you feel about saying a line or two? The assistant director immediately stepped forward. Howard, he's not a principal. He's background. Union rules. I'll handle the union, Hawks said. Martin, I want you to move to the bar for the next scene. When Scott asks the bartender about strangers in town, I want you to turn around and say, haven't seen any strangers, but I've seen plenty of trouble. Can you do that naturally? Dean nodded. Yes, sir. The next scene was the one that changed everything. Scott entered the saloon and approached the bar. The bartender was polishing glasses, trying to look busy and avoid eye contact. Scott ordered a whiskey, and then asked, You seen any strangers in town lately? Men who might be interested in other people's cattle? The bartender started to respond nervously, but before he could answer, Dean turned from his position at the bar, looked directly at Scott, and delivered his line. Haven't seen any strangers, but I've seen plenty of trouble. The way Dean said it was perfect. Not challenging, not threatening, but with the quiet confidence of a man who could handle himself and wasn't impressed by reputations. His delivery suggested a character with his own story, his own reasons for being in this saloon, his own relationship with trouble. Scott, a consummate professional, stayed in character and responded. What kind of trouble? This wasn't in the script. Dean was supposed to deliver his line and fade back into the background. But Hawks was letting the scene play, curious to see what would happen. Dean looked at Scott for a moment, then smiled slightly. The kind that walks through that door, asking questions about other people's business. The exchange was electric. Two strong characters feeling each other out, neither backing down, but neither looking for a fight. The saloon extras had stopped their conversations to watch, which was exactly what would happen in real life. Hawks let the scene continue for another 30 seconds before calling cut. The entire set was quiet. Everyone could feel that something special had just happened. Hawks walked over to Dean. Martin, where did that come from? I don't know, sir. It just felt right for the character. What character? You're supposed to be background. Dean shrugged. Well, if I'm in this saloon, there's got to be a reason. Maybe I'm not looking for trouble, but I'm not afraid of it either. Maybe I've got my own reasons for being here. Hawks stared at Dean for a long moment. Then he called his assistant over. Get the writer down here. I want to talk about expanding this character. Within 2 hours, Dean had gone from a $25 a day extra to a supporting character with a name, a backstory, and actual dialogue scenes. The character became Jake Sullivan, a former gunfighter trying to go straight but getting pulled back into conflict. Randolph Scott, who had been in Hollywood long enough to recognize natural screen presence, pulled Dean aside during lunch. Kid, I don't know where you came from, but you've got something. Hawks doesn't usually change scripts for anybody, especially not for extras. I was just trying to be authentic, Dean said. That's exactly what you were doing, and that's rarer than you might think in this business. Over the next 3 days of filming, Dean's part continued to grow. Hawks kept finding reasons to give Jake Sullivan more scenes, more dialogue, more opportunities to interact with Scott's character. The chemistry between the two actors was undeniable. You know what's interesting about you, Martin? Hawks said on the third day. You don't act like a sidekick, and you don't try to steal scenes. You just exist in the same space as Scott like you belong there. That's leading man quality. The final saloon scene became a showpiece for both actors. Jake Sullivan's character arc had evolved into the emotional heart of the film. He was the man caught between his past and his future, forced to choose between safety and doing what's right. When filming wrapped, Hawks called Dean into his office. Martin, I've been making westerns for 20 years, and I've worked with the biggest stars in Hollywood. You've got natural screen presence and an authentic western persona that can't be taught. Hawks paused and pulled out a contract. Republic Pictures wants to offer you a 7-picture deal, supporting roles initially, but with the potential for leading parts if audiences respond to you the way I think they will. Dean stared at the contract. A week ago he'd been scrambling for $25 jobs. Now he was looking at a guaranteed income and a potential movie career. There's one condition, Hawks continued. You need to work with an acting coach, not because you can't act, but because you need to learn how the business works. Camera angles, hitting marks, working with scripts. The natural talent is there, but you need the technical skills. Dean signed the contract that day. When Gunfire at Silver Creek was released 6 months later, critics and audiences immediately noticed Jake Sullivan. Variety wrote, "Newcomer Dean Martin brings authentic Western charisma to his supporting role, suggesting leading man potential." The Hollywood Reporter noted, "Martin's natural screen presence and chemistry with Randolph Scott elevates what could have been a standard cattle rustler plot." More importantly, other directors started asking for Dean Martin specifically. His combination of natural coolness, authentic Western presence, and easy chemistry with other actors made him valuable in an industry always looking for the next leading man. Dean made 4 more Westerns over the next 2 years before his partnership with Jerry Lewis launched him into comedy stardom, but those Western films established his screen credentials and proved he could carry dramatic scenes as well as comedic ones. Years later, when Dean had become one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Howard Hawks would tell the story of discovering Dean Martin in a saloon scene. The best actors aren't the ones trying to act. They're the ones who just exist authentically in whatever situation you put them in. Dean walked into that saloon scene as an extra and walked out as a leading man because he understood something most actors never learn. The character doesn't serve you, you serve the character. Dean always remained humble about his Western movie breakthrough. When reporters asked how he went from extra to star in 1 week, his answer was characteristically simple. "I just tried to be the kind of guy who would really be in that saloon." Everything else was Howard Hawks' idea. But Hawks knew better. He'd seen hundreds of extras come and go. Dean Martin had something special, the ability to make any role, no matter how small, feel authentic and important. The extra who showed up for $25 a day had become a Hollywood legend, not through ambition or calculation, but through the simple commitment to being genuine in whatever situation he found himself in. Today, Gunfire at Silver Creek is remembered not for its plot or action sequences, but as the film that discovered Dean Martin's natural screen presence. Film schools show the saloon scenes as examples of how authentic character work can elevate material and how the right actor can transform a small role into something memorable. Dean's journey from extra to star became Hollywood legend, proving that sometimes the most important auditions are the ones you don't know you're taking. If this incredible story of accidental stardom and natural talent moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to know that authenticity and professionalism can open unexpected doors. Have you ever had a small opportunity turn into something much bigger? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about how Hollywood legends were really discovered.